Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar on leveraging AI in construction. My name is Morgan Arwood, and I'm your membership director for both CSIA and MICA. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you as we explore how artificial intelligence is reshaping the construction industry. We're thrilled to have Corey Shelson, co-founder of Apello, here to guide us through this topic. Corey is not only an engineer and entrepreneur, but also a Canadian military veteran with deep experience in the construction and technology. His company, Apello, is at the forefront of integrating AI into field operations, safety compliance, job tracking, and financial management. Corey's insights will help provide you with practical, actionable steps to leverage AI in your business. So get ready for an engaging discussion. Before we dive in, just a quick reminder that we'll have a Q&A session at the end, so feel free to drop questions. Welcome and thank you for being here today, Corey. Let's get started.
Thank you very much for the warm introduction, Morgan, and thank you everybody who is attending. Looks like we have about 20 participants, which is great. I'm going to share my screen. And we can dive right in. Today, I'm going to walk you through a whole bunch of stuff on AI, and I'm going to try and make it as applicable to mechanical insulators as I can. In order to get a feel for the crowd and how everybody's feeling, I would like everybody to pull out their phones, and you can scan that QR code that you should be able to see. And Morgan, just you can confirm to me that everybody can see my screen there, okay?
Yep, I can see it just fine.
Okay, so if everybody will pull out their phones and scan the QR code, this is a poll, and as your answers come in, we'll start seeing them. So the question is, in order to gauge how familiar you are with the current AI landscape, select which of the following platforms you've used in the past. Now, the platforms that I put here, ChatGPT, Perplexity, Grok, Gemini, these different tools are the ones that are, I would say, kind of popular on the market right now. What I've noticed, and I'm sure everybody's noticing, is things are moving quickly, and every week it seems that there are new tools or platforms that become available. And I think it's because they're all trying to get our attention to figure out, who can get us early, get us to subscribe to their platform so that they can retain us as customers. Ultimately, these platforms build based on data. They get better. So more users equals more data equals a better platform equals more users, which equals more data. And there's a flywheel effect. And so that's why you're seeing so many of these platforms give away so much of their functionality for free. And today we're going to go through a few of these and show you actually how to use them. So it looks like 65% of you have used ChatGPT. There's about a third who don't know what any of these are. So for the third of you who maybe feel a little bit lost, don't worry, we're going to go through each of these and give you a bit of an idea of what their capabilities are. Next question. What do you see as the biggest barrier to adopting AI in your operations within your organization? Don't know where to start, or lack of knowledge or expertise, resistance to change within the team, uncertainty about costs, benefits, and ROI, or is it data privacy and security concerns? So let's see what we come up with here. Okay, we'll give it another 20 seconds or so. So it looks like the majority of the crowd right now just doesn't know where to start. You're in the right spot. Today, we will go through a number of different tools that I use. I'll show you how to get signed up, how to use them, and show you how you can get benefit. Okay, and I think by the end, you'll definitely see that there's definitely an ROI in terms of time savings for sure. Data privacy and security concerns we won't talk too much on today. But yes, it definitely is something we all need to be aware of. Look at that. Nobody seems resistant to change. That's interesting. Definitely shows the mindset of the construction industry. So last question. List the tasks you find most frustrating, time-consuming, or monotonous. Those you'd love to see automated or streamlined with AI. The more ideas, the better. So this is a word cloud. You can just type whatever ideas come to mind, and we'll start seeing These words come to life here on the screen, and we'll see where people's minds are in terms of what they hope they can do with AI, what they believe that they might be able to accomplish with a bot that can work while you're sleeping. Nice thing about this tool is if we have more people agree on a specific topic, for example, we see estimating, it's bigger because more people in the crowd are saying that that is a pain point. I always like starting off with these polls. I feel like it just sets a good tone for the conversation we're going to have today, and it allows me to get a bit of feedback on where everybody is who I can't see or talk to, as I'm going through this presentation. So we see estimating, billing, scheduling, dealing with takeoffs, documentation, time versus cost tracking, so maybe some data analytics, but more and more estimating, being able to streamline estimating. I will show you some personal research that I'm doing on estimating AI and some of the progress we're making with that today. I'm also going to show you how we're using AI at Apello to streamline the creation of documentation, policies, procedures, standard operating procedures, and whatnot. Also for any type of CRM or communications, being able to use AI to streamline rewriting notes and rewriting emails, definitely an applicable AI use case. Okay, so we'll pause that there and we'll keep going. Today, these are the items that I intend to cover. And let me just. Okay. So number one, hoping that I will be able to help you understand AI and the relevance to you, discover some practical tools that you can use, give you some examples and some real life workflows, and then also introduce you to some of the things we're doing at Apello. May recognize some familiar faces here from Omaha, Nebraska, if you happen to be there. I have attended a number of ISICA, CSIA, MICA, SWICA, NIA, and TIAC events over the last year. So I may recognize you when I see who's all attended. What I want to pop in here is to share a quick video on kind of where we are now in terms of AI. And so I'm going to play this and about 2 minutes here.
In order to talk about this big moment we're in with AI, I think we need to go back to video games in the 90s. At the time, I know game developers wanted to create more realistic looking graphics, but the hardware couldn't keep up with all of that necessary math.
Not enough math.
NVIDIA came up with a solution that would change not just games, but computing itself. Could you take us back there and explain what was happening and what were the insights that led you and the NVIDIA team to create the first modern GPU?
So in the early 90s, when we first started the company, we observed that in a software program, inside it, there are just a few lines of code, maybe 10% of the code does 99% of the processing. And that 99% of the processing could be done in parallel. However, the other 90% of the code has to be done sequentially. It turns out that the proper computer, the perfect computer, is one that could do sequential processing and parallel processing, not just one or the other. That was the big observation. And we set out to build a company to solve computer problems that normal computers can't. And that's really the beginning of NVIDIA.
My favorite visual of why a CPU versus a GPU really matters so much is a 15-year-old video on the NVIDIA YouTube channel, where the Mythbusters, they use a little robot shooting paintballs one by one to show solving problems one at a time, or sequential processing on a CPU. But then they roll out this huge robot that shoots all of the paintballs at once, doing smaller problems all at the same time, or parallel processing on a GPU.
3, 2, 1.
So NVIDIA unlocks all of this new power for video games. Why gaming first?
the video games requires parallel processing for processing 3D graphics. And we chose video games because one, we loved the application. It's a simulation of virtual worlds, and who doesn't want to go to virtual worlds? And we had the good observation that video games has potential to be the largest market for entertainment ever. And it turned out to be true. And having it being a large market is important because the technology is complicated. And if we had a large market, our R&D budget could be large. We could create new technology.
And what happened here is, as NVIDIA released this new type of processing chip, it gave the ability to do things with computers, 10, 15 years ago that couldn't be done before. And what they ended up doing was they realized that there was more of a desire to do things with this computing power that you could do with this chip than just video games. And so they wrote a piece of software that sat on top of it that let normal computer programmers access the power that they had built in this computing chip for the purpose of doing video games. And in 2012, in Toronto, Ontario, which is where I'm from, these three fellas here entered a competition to develop a computer algorithm that could guess what an image was. So you could show it an image and it would tell you what it was. And it was these three fellas here that created the first neural network called AlexNet. And you can see this one gentleman right here. He became one of the founders of OpenAI alongside Elon Musk. And you can see that this fellow right here, 12 years later, was awarded with the Nobel Prize in Physics. So you can see these are pretty monumental shifts in terms of what we're able to do. And it was a combination of the hardware and the software working together to be able to create these new things called large language models. And that's what all of this AI stuff that we're talking about right now is based on. It's based on the concept of a large language model. And I've given this presentation before where I dissect what an LLM is, but really the way I think about it is, picture going into a library in high school and you've got to write an essay. And you walk up to the librarian and you say, I need to write an essay about the War of 1812. And the librarian would say, go up to this section in this row on this shelf, and you'll find a section of books about the War of 1812. Google is like a librarian, or at least Google without its new AI capabilities was like a librarian. When you went to Google and you asked it something, it would give you a bunch of web pages, and you would have to go to that web page to find the answer. I think about a large language model as a librarian who has read every single book in the library and can tell you exactly what you need to know and can explain it to you in the way that you understand right there for any question you could possibly ask. And the reason that large language models can do this is because with the power of the GPU and with the technology that was built, they have been basically been able to train large language models on very large sets of data. And so you can kind of assume that they know everything that has been written down in Word since the beginning of time. And essentially, large language models are advanced AI tools that combine machine learning, natural language processing, and having a very vast amount of data. And it allows you to essentially interact with it in a way that feels like it truly does have all information at its fingertips. And as this technology has come to market, the first platform that I think we really saw about 2 years ago was ChatGPT, which was launched by a company called AI. And a number of other platforms have been released over the last few years, which we'll touch on today. But ChatGPT is definitely one of the most popular. ChatGPT and then ChatGPT 3 came out. And I'm not sure if you can remember, for those of you who have used it, but the amount you could actually say to one of these models and the amount of information you could get back was very much constrained. You would always hit these usage limits. And what we have found is the amount of information you can give and get back from these models over the last kind of 2 years has really evolved. And it's this thing called the context window, which we'll talk a bit more later on today. what I want you to think about is these brands, OpenAI and Anthropic, those are similar to the way you'd think about Apple. That's the corporation, that's the company at the top. In fact, OpenAI is supposedly not for profit. At least that's what it was intended to be set up as, and that may be changing. Apple has a platform called an iPhone. And the iPhone goes through versions, iOS 15, 16, 17, 18. You can think about these software versions the same way as you think about these AI models. At the end of the day, it's still ChatGPT, but it's what version of the software are we using? And pretty much every version of software that comes out, they are releasing monumental new capabilities in terms of what you can do with them. So why are we talking about this, and why do we care, and why were there 42 people who registered for this session? And I think it's because we all realize that it's hard to make money in construction. And it can be very hard, especially when we have a massive shortage of labor, right? They say we're going to be about 500,000 laborers short annually to meet housing demands. And so if we can't grow through labor because we have a hard time finding workforce, and if labor is such a constraint, then we had probably try and get the most amount of profit out of our businesses that we can. And so I guess the reason I care about this, and the reason I think most of us care about this, is because we think we can make more money by understanding how to leverage AI, by increasing revenue and decreasing expenses. I think that there's the opportunity to do both. Today, I'm going to focus most on how do we decrease expenses? How do we use AI to be more efficient with our time? And how do we use AI to do things that we normally do manually, but now we can do them in an automated fashion? And I hope that you can use these practical tools immediately following this session. And so that is the end of the slideshow. I'm going to play a couple of videos throughout, but I'm going to hop right into the tools, and we're going to take the next half hour or so to actually do a little bit of playing. And so the first tool I'm going to hop into is ChatGPT. ChatGPT is located at chatgpt.com, and you can sign up at chatgpt.com. You can get a free account, or you can pay for an account. The paid accounts give you access to the latest software or the latest models, which have the greatest capabilities. If you have a free version, you may only get a certain number of messages per day. As you can see here, this is the ChatGPT interface. This is where I do my interaction with the AI model. And up here, you can see all of the various models that you can select. So they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different models. And for people who have never used ChatGPT, you might ask, well, what the heck do these things mean? Well, if we go back in time, I would say the oldest model that is here is ChatGPT 4. So 03 is newer than 4. It is. The nomenclature and the numbering is confusing. I can tell you that. But each of these models, they have given you a little bit of a note under it that says what it is good at. Okay, so GPT-4o Mini is fastest for most common questions. So I could use that one and say, what is a healthy meal plan for a male who is 40 years old who wants to lose 10 pounds in 4 weeks? And this model is quite quick at working through the answer to that question, okay? Now, if you go up into some of these higher caliber models, they can do things that maybe this older model wouldn't be so good at, okay? And so let's go to O1. I want to show you down here. You can notice different models have different capabilities as well. So if I go into, say, O3 Mini, it can search the web, but O1 can't search the web. It's the way these models have been developed and what their use case is for. The use case I want to show you is we're going to try and play with an RFP, because I think that is a use case that people care about. So what I did was I created inside of ChatGPT, I created a project, and then I was able to upload a file, and I was able to upload this 300-page RFP for a mechanical shop that needs to be built in a town called Hearst in Ontario. And that is now uploaded. And I gave it in a set of instructions. I said, you're a helpful assistant and you're going to help me analyze and respond to this RFP. And so now I can just interact with this RFP without having to go and search through it. So I could say, what is this RFP for? Okay, and so now the ChatGPT is able to interact and live on top of that PDF document. And I'm able to go through and ask it any questions that I want. For example, I could ask it, what are the response criteria? How is it going to be scored? What are some things that I might want to include in my proposal that'll help me stand out? All of these things can be done now because I can essentially use this 800-page RFP document as the knowledge that my large language model can read and interact with and understand. And so this is probably one of the best and most applicable use cases that I think everybody in this room can get today is if you have long, complicated contracts, RFP documents, and you're trying to streamline preparation of quotes or responses, opening up ChatGPT, creating a project, giving it a name, uploading the files that you've got, and then interacting with it. And you're going to find that you get a tremendous amount of benefit. Okay, so that is a little bit about ChatGPT. There's a number of platforms I want to go through, and so I'm going to leave that one there. Next one, I want to show you a tool called Fathom, and we use this all the time to help streamline kind of the post-meeting follow-up process. So what I'm showing you here is a tool called Fathom. You can find it at fathom.video. And the nice thing about Fathom is it doesn't actually cost anything for individual users. Where they get you is they want you to sign up for the team account. But if I were to go to Fathom Video, you go to the website, you'll see that it's free. And basically what you do is you install this and it works with Zoom, it works with Teams, it works with Google Meets, and it follows you into your meetings. And so what I'll do is I'll log in and I'll show you what that looks like in practicality for me. And so what we do is we have Fathom follow us into basically every meeting that we conduct. Okay. And so I could go back to this demo I did with this construction company here. Okay. And I can go and it has a summary of the meeting. Okay. And it also has like next steps. Corey said he'll send a follow-up email with the meeting recording. If I click on that, that's okay, so it takes me right to that part in the video so I can see exactly when I was talking about that thing. I also have the full transcript here of the entire video. And I also have the ability to ask AI to tell me things. So what were Tony's biggest concerns that he hoped fellow could address? And now it's going to analyze the transcript and the summary. So based on the meeting transcript, Tony's biggest concerns that he hoped fellow could address were the complexity and clumsiness of the current construction management software, builder trend and sitemax. He mentioned it was incredibly complex and didn't include feature scenes, and so on. And it actually then gives me links to parts of the video where this stuff was discussed. Things I also like to do with this is we can share this with a link to give to our customers. So that incredibly reduces the amount of kind of details I have to provide in written format. So I can give them the actual link, they can share it internally. Other things that it does, I could say draft an email to Tony summarizing the meeting, including action items. And you can, the big thing here is spelling doesn't really matter with these large language models. Even if you mess it up, it's going to understand what you're talking about. Okay, and here is an entire email ready for me to basically copy and paste. And then I can go into my email I can compose an email here, in here. Hey, Tony, thank you for taking time to meet with me today and learn more about Apello. I appreciate you sharing the challenges you face with your current construction management software. To summarize your discussion, okay, so there's the key takeaways, the overview of what we discussed, and next steps. Okay, thanks in advance. Corey. What I'm finding is when we're dealing with all sorts of different meetings, whether they're demos, sales meetings, customer support meetings, having. So the reason I shared Fathom is for anybody who's doing any type of Zoom coordination or Zoom meetings, just like we're doing here, by having a tool like Fathom follow you around, it's becoming more and more commonplace. You will have a record of all the conversations that you've had. You'll have the ability for those meetings to hop into Fathom and use the chat to help you analyze what were all the things that we said that we were going to have to do, right? So the days of taking paper notes and then leaving a meeting and then going away and trying to figure out, okay, what was it that we said we had to do? How did those deadlines change? What were the budgets? What did she ask for? All of that now can be stored for free in this tool called Fathom, and you can interact with it to pull information to help you create your to-do lists, to draft follow-up emails, and basically have it as a repository of knowledge. So the next time you go into a meeting, you can go back to that video and say, what were the things that we talked about in our last meeting, and what should I do to prepare for this meeting? And you can use that tool for all of that. Okay, so I hope that that helps a little bit. I'm going to share my screen again, and we're going to move on to next tool, Claude. All right, so let's hop over to Claude, and I'm going to show you what this tool is and how I use it. So I was talking about these different brands. Okay, well, we were in ChatGPT. Now we're in Claude. ChatGPT is owned by OpenAI. Claude is opened by a company called Anthropic. Okay, OpenAI has its models that I showed you, GPT 4o, those ones. This is what Claude has, Claude 3.5, Claude 3.7. What do these mean? To most people, they mean absolutely nothing. Once you start using these things, you realize they have a certain capability. So Claude has something that it can do with Sonnet called artifacts. So let's create an artifact. I can say, I need a mechanical installation procedure for hot work, including all safety considerations. All right. Create as flowchart, make as artifact. Once you know these couple of things to say, this will start going to work and it will start creating an actual flowchart for me in real time. So how might you use this? So you're at work, you need to create any type of standard operating procedure. You don't need to sit down and flowchart this on a whiteboard and then open up a tool and draw all of your flowcharts. In fact, that normally takes so much time that most people don't even end up doing it. What you can see here is this has done a pretty good job of actually brainstorming all the steps needed if you're going to be doing insulation around hot piping. Okay, let's use another example. Let's say it's customer service. So start a new chat. I need a customer service intake that takes into consideration severity, time, availability of labor. You can see I'm kind of intentionally showing you that even if I misspell here, it will still do a good job of picking up anything that I'm talking about. This is for an insulation company that responds with service/TNM work orders. Basically, what I'm saying here is, we have, how do we receive a work order request? how do we go out and figure out what we need to do? In this case, I didn't say specify as a flow chart. So what it's actually going to go do is it's going to create like a little intake form. It's actually going to write the code. And so what you're seeing with more and more of these models is they can actually write code for you. We are building tools within Apello where AI is writing all of the code for us, and then we're just harnessing it. So what it's doing here is it's actually creating a work order form by the looks of it. Okay, and you can see that it's building out all the values and all of the drop downs. Let's say you had to create a calculator, or you wanted to brainstorm a form that you might want to create. You could use Claude to do exactly what I'm doing here, and you'll see in a second it'll spit out a fully interactive interface that we could point and click and play with. This is code that if you were to write it to pay a developer to do, it might take them days to write, and I can tell you that you can iterate on this stuff quite quick with a tool like Claude. Let me show you the use case of creating a calculator, because I think it's another good one. So I need a material calculator to plan an mechanical insulation job. Give me the inputs I might need and create the necessary output. So I'm going to see if this thing can create a calculator for me based on a very poorly written kind of prompt. And so what it's going to do is thinking about all the different things that we might need for this mechanical insulation job. And it's going to go through and start creating a little calculator for me. Now, I'm not saying that you're going to create production level tools with this, but if you're trying to brainstorm something, this is a really quick way that you can do it. See? So now you're able to actually go through and use this calculator. And again, I'm not saying this calculator is providing any value as is, but if you have a calculator, something that you're trying to brainstorm, before you pull out Excel and start, whipping up files, you could use a tool like Claude to rapidly brainstorm. Okay, next thing I want to show you. Let's go through, we went through flow charts. Next thing I want to show you is how we can combine AI with tools that we're already using. So I've shown you the use case of ChatGPT. You can hop in and you can interact with documents, whether it's an RFP, a legal document, you upload it, you can interact with it. I've shown you that with Claude, you can hop in there and you can create almost like usable items, flow charts, standard operating procedures, calculators, all tools that might help you out. Let's go and see how we can do things by getting tools we're already using to talk to each other. So there is a platform called Zapier. And if I go into Zapier, I can create what's called an agent. And why don't we have this be a it could be a document retrieval agent. All right. And we can give it the ability to act on our behalf. And so we can say trigger when you receive a request, go and find the document the person asks for from Google Drive. And what I can do is give it the ability to take an action where it can go into Google Drive, or it can go into any tool and do things for you. Okay. Save. Test behavior. And so now I could say, go into Google Drive and retrieve Apello product information. Okay, now this will have the ability to access my Google Drive, go into my Google Drive, do a search, and then pull back any files that relate to Apello product information. And the point that I'm trying to make here is that once you understand that you can have these AI tools interact with things you're already using, you can start combining them to go through and do things with pretty much any tools that you use. Now, an example that came up was on the estimating side. So how are we doing estimating? And I want to talk about a little bit about the research that I'm working on right now at Apello that is probably one of the biggest things in the industry is how do we solve this problem with AI? How do we prevent an estimator from having to go through hundreds of tabs in Crossroads or DI or Flex price books to go and find the prices? Now, some prices you're going to know. You've got your list and you've got your net price. You're going to know your discounts. You use them all the time. But if you're working on an obscure RFP and you have to do a massive takeoff and you need to get pricing, or you have a really small T&M and you just want a quick back of the envelope, how do we have AI do that for us? And so this is work that I'm working on right now. I'm going to show you where I'm at. And then after that, I'll show you some of the stuff we're doing in Apello and how we're giving AI tools to insulators right within our platform. So there is a platform called Pinecone. And what Pinecone allows you to do is it allows you to create something called an assistant. And so I created an assistant. I gave it a name. I told it where I was located. And then in that assistant, similar to ChatGPT, you can upload files. And so what I did was actually went through and I pulled the Canadian version. May not be as well known in the US, but up here we have Crossroads. In the States, you have DI. I went and uploaded all of the sheets of their price book. Okay, so each one of these, this probably starts to look familiar to you, right? I uploaded all of the sheets from their price book. And I think one of the biggest problems I've experienced in the mechanical insulation sector, having worked in it for 3 years and building software specifically for insulators, is this problem right here, is that every supplier, every distributor has price books that are coming in all sorts of different formats. Some are in PDF, some are Excel. There's no standardization in terms of how they're actually laid out, and even page to page inside of a price book. Like if I go, this is probably one of the easiest ones, sheets that I reference all the time, would be like this one, right? Your typical micro lock ASJ fiberglass insulation, where you've got copper, pipe size, iron pipe size, all your insulation thicknesses. You've got linear feet per box, price per linear feet. If you wonder why there's so few options out there for streamlining estimating and insulation, I truly believe it's the root cause is all of these price sheets and how complicated and kind of unwieldy they've become. But the good news is I believe AI is going to help us solve this problem. And I believe this is a problem that Apello is going to solve very well in the coming months. And we're getting very close, and I'll show you what we can do now. So within the price sheet brain, I have given it, like I said, hundreds of price sheets, but I've also given it some other things. I uploaded the Mica manual. I uploaded the TIAC manual. I gave it some ASTM standards. I gave it some spec sheets. I gave it all sorts of information that this brain now understands about AI, or sorry, about mechanical insulation. So I've now given it a specialty in this space, and now I can go over and grab this quote, and I can come back into here, and I can paste that in. And you know what? It's starting to do a pretty good job. It's starting to do a pretty good job of going item by item and actually referencing the proper product, finding the actual price, and then plotting out the material cost. And then it's also using the Dennis formula to determine labor costing. Okay, and you'll see how this is working. It's working through, it's giving estimates on how many feet can be done per day per person. It's breaking out estimated hours, and it's giving me a pretty good quote. Now, just as a point of reference, my partner, Matt, who is a third generation mechanical insulator out of London, Ontario, this is an exact job that he quoted. And I asked him, what did you quote it? And he said, I quoted it 24 grand. And that came out pretty close. So I'm not saying it's perfect yet, but I see the writing on the wall and I see that the technology is here and I see that it's actually quite accessible if you just know where to get started and you know where to look. And so my recommendations to everybody is best thing to do is just get started. Start by registering and signing up for a tool like ChatGPT. Get yourself into Claude and start using them. Every time you need to send an email, every time you need to analyze a contract, anytime you're doing any of that stuff, your first thought should be, how can I use AI to help me? I'm going to give you a little bit of insight as to where I think the industry is going. And we talked about the context window. This is a great video by the former Google CEO.
The key thing that's going on now is we're moving very quickly through the capability ladder steps. And I think there are roughly three things going on now that are going to profoundly change the world very quickly. And when I say very quickly, the cycle is roughly a new model every year to 18 months. The first is basically this question of context window. And for non-technical people, the context window is the prompt that you ask. So, study John F. Kennedy or something. But in fact, that context window can have 1,000,000 words in it. And this year, people are inventing a context window that is infinitely long. And this is very important because it means that you can take the answer from the system and feed it in and ask it another question. So I want a recipe. Let's say I want a recipe to make a drug or something. So I say, what's the first step? And it says, buy these materials. So then you say, okay, I bought these materials. Now what's my next step? And then it says, buy a mixing pan. And then the next step is, how long do I mix it for? You see, it's a recipe. That's called chain of thought reasoning. And it generalizes really well. We should be able, in 5 years, for example, to be able to produce 1,000-step recipes to solve really important problems in science, in medicine, in material science, climate change, that sort of thing. It's the first one. The second one is agents. And an agent can be understood as a large language model that knows something new or has learned something. So an example would be read all of chemistry, learn something about chemistry, have a bunch of hypotheses about chemistry, run some tests in a lab about chemistry, and then add that to your agent. These agents are going to be really powerful, and it's reasonable to expect that agents will be, not only will there be a lot of them, and I mean millions, but they'll be like the equivalent of GitHub for agents. There'll be lots and lots of agents running around and available to you. And the third one, which to me is the most profound, which is already beginning to happen, is text to action. And what that is write me a piece of software to do something, right? You just say it. I mean, can you imagine having programmers that actually do what you say you want? And it does it 24 hours a day. And strangely, these systems are good at writing code such as language like Python. You put all that together and you've got infinite context window, the ability for agents, and then the ability to do this programming. Now, this is very interesting. What then happens? There's a lot of questions here. And now we get into the questions of science fiction. I'm sure the three things I've named are happening because that work is happening now. But at some point, these systems will get powerful enough that you'll be able to take the agents and they'll start to work together, right? So your agent and my agent and her agent and his agent will all combine to solve a new problem. At some point, people believe that these agents will develop their own language. And that's the point when we don't understand what we're doing. You know what we should do? Pull the plug.
So a bit of an idea of where he believes AI is going. I'll talk a little bit about Apello, and I'm going to show you the AI tools that we have for insulators that insulators are using today within the platform. So Apello is a software platform. We built it. We started building it 3.5 years ago with a mechanical insulator here in just north of the border in Ontario. We are in 5 states in the US and 5 provinces in Canada. And we started it here at Vanas Installations. And really the nexus of his problem was around these material price sheets and these material books and quoting. But we kind of have come at it from more workforce admin, timesheets, scheduling, and giving you all the tools you need to run a mechanical installation company. We focus typically on companies that are unionized and have a health and safety program. And basically what we've done is we've tried to bring all the pieces of various tools that companies are using into a single platform that gives you the ability to have your CRM, job scheduling, worker scheduling, timesheets, expense management, digital safety forms, equipment management, quoting. So not material takeoff, but actually budgets, creating your estimate, tracking your deal flow, progress reporting and progress invoicing for industrial needs, and so on. And so we built a great platform and we've incorporated AI into 3 parts of it. So the first is for field to office communications and helping to streamline that process. So I'll play a video for you here. The place that we've built AI into Apello is with our note functionality. And so notes are used primarily for field to office communications. So I could create an announcement for the company that's going to go out to the desktop and the mobile app. And I could say, holiday shutdown. And I could say something like, there will be a holiday shutdown from December 21 to 26, 2014. We will shut down for Christmas and no one is required to work. And then what I can do is I can actually rewrite it with AI. So let's rewrite it to be a little more professional. Good. Please be informed that our operations will be temporarily suspended for Christmas holiday. During this period, all staff are relieved from work duties. And then I can also, let's imagine I had some Spanish workers on our workforce, which we actually do see quite a bit. We could then translate that to Spanish. And so now we end up having an English and a Spanish version. And then if I click send, which I'm not going to do because this is a live instance, it's going to send that message over to everybody with English, with Spanish. And you can see that not only has the AI allowed me to write a better quality message, but it's also allowed me to do that in multiple languages. We're also finding field workers are using this on their mobile app, where they are communicating in their mother tongue, say they're writing in Spanish, and then translating it to English to submit to their to management or to other people on the team that might not speak Spanish. So large language models are great for translating languages. And so we've incorporated AI into all of the communications functionality within Apello. The next use case we have is for creating documents and policies. Think about standard operating procedures, or in this case, a late/no-show policy because you're experiencing workers coming in or not showing up at all. You need to put a policy in place for them to sign so that you can start the process of first, second warning, and so on. So there's about 60 seconds here. The document policy writing functionality. So let's use an example. Let's say we've had an issue with late and no-shows. Okay, and so what I can do is create that policy. And then again, I have my AI copilot, so I can say, we are having an issue at Vanas Installations with late and no-shows from our field workers. Draft a policy to govern this. And then it will, again, it's going to send that into AI, and the AI is going to draft the first cut of this policy. I can insert that here. And again, with a little bit of tweaking. Apply maybe an H1 to that here. Okay, policy, purpose, policy review, acknowledgement. Okay. So now that the policy is done, okay, I can then save that policy. Okay, and then I can publish it. And when I publish it, I have the ability to then send it out for people to sign. And I can send it out to the entire company in one click, publish it. They'll all receive it. And then as signatures come in, they will all show here. So we'll see the date they reviewed and the date that they signed that policy. And this allows you to do version control and all the rest of it. We're seeing companies use this for toolbox talks, standard operating procedures, health and safety policies, training documents, and it's really helped cutting down administrative time, especially when you have to get all of that stuff signed and you have to have it available for an audit. The last example I'm going to show you here. So what I showed you earlier was developing pricing from price books based on a given scope of work. What I'm showing you here is you want to create a quote letter that's more of the formal quote letter that sits on top of that package. Within Apello, you can create an estimate, you can put in your budget, and you can upload documents. And then the AI will actually help you draft the quote letter very, very quickly. We've incorporated AI into Apello is with our AI estimate writer. And so within Apello, you can create your budget for a job broken down by your costs, materials, labor. You can apply your overhead and markups to get your marked up values and then select your bid price. And then here, you're selecting all of the details in terms of who the estimator is, who the customer is, and so on. But when it comes to writing the estimate letter, there's no reason why AI shouldn't be able to power this. So what we do is we allow you to initialize the AI, and I can say draft a quote letter for this job. And what it's going to use is the context, all the information that it was provided, and it's going to draft the actual quote letter with the actual details. And you can see that it's doing that now. Okay, and then I can then insert that here, and with a little bit of formatting, details there. With a little bit of formatting, you can go through, format that, export it to PDF, and send it off. And so those are a few different ways that we're incorporating AI into Apello. I've tried to provide in a very short amount of time a starting point to how we got to where we are with AI, why it should matter to you as construction professionals in the installation sector, some tools you might want to consider starting with, ChatGPT and Claude. The idea, if you want to get platforms to talk to each other, you might want to consider using Zapier. If you're struggling with post-meeting communications and follow-ups, you might want to consider a tool like Fathom. And ultimately, I would encourage everybody to stay very, very curious. Things are changing very quickly, and I think those companies that adopt AI into their workflows will be the ones that succeed. I've said this before. I don't think it's going to be AI that takes down developers. I think it's going to be developers using AI that take the jobs from developers. I don't think it's going to be AI that takes the job from insulators or puts an insulator business. I think it's going to be insulation companies using AI that put the others out of business. And so I will leave you with that. I think we still have about 5 minutes, and I can answer any questions or respond to anything that anybody might have.
Hey, Corey, while everyone's getting their thoughts together, I had a couple questions, if you don't mind.
Sure.
So you may have covered this, and I use AI almost every day. But it's really important to go back and review what is done. So while it'll do 90% of the work for you, it's important to go back and review everything that's there to make sure that it's exactly what you want. Do you think that's true?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, AI at the end of the day is a tool. It should be used as a tool in your toolbox to help you do your job. I mean, the outputs of AI are getting better and better, but they do have the ability to be steered and hallucinate. So everything that you get from an AI tool needs to be reviewed to make sure it's accurate. I would say that's one of the biggest challenges we're having on our estimating side is if somebody says I need 480 feet of 4x1 fiberglass insulation, it can't bring the wrong price back. It can't say it's $2.31 a lineal foot if it's $3.47 a lineal foot. And so it's that data verification. Interestingly enough, if you ask an AI a question, or you ask it to do something for you, and if you take the answer it gives you, and then just ask it, review this answer against my previous questions. Are you sure you're right? Oftentimes it'll say, you know what, I did find a couple things that I was wrong. You heard in that one video the idea of chain of thought reasoning. That's the idea of AIs having multiple steps to their process. They have found that AI platforms like ChatGPT, their latest models are, instead of asking AI a question once and getting an answer back, you get a much better answer if you ask the AI a question, get the answer back, and then go to the next step and ask that AI to take that answer and do something with it and build upon itself. They're getting a better quality test result when they do standardized testing. So absolutely, Morgan. It's a great point.
One other thing I was wondering about, sensitive information. Is there any potential for that being shared in any way?
Yeah, so every time you sign up for a large language model, you have the ability to say whether you want your data to be included in training the model. And so that is something that when you say sign up for ChatGPT, you will disable and say that you do not want them to be able to use your data to train the model. A tool, for example, like Grok, which is made by Elon Musk, formerly known as Twitter, his company X. Right within Grok, they're incentivizing you to share your data so that they can use that data to make their model better. So it's definitely something to be aware of. That being said, depending on what type of information you're putting in there, I think risk versus reward needs to be taken into consideration. What's the risk of
somebody, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Okay, anonymous attendee asks, do you see anyone using AI in federal work, and how are they handling information security?
I'm not connected in the federal sector, so I don't know the answer to that question, but I do know that enterprise organizations typically are on pretty robust systems. And that's why you see large organizations using like Microsoft 365, because they have all of the additional kind of back-end security systems, IT infrastructure. They have their ability to have internal AI that is kind of walled off from the world. And so I think if you're in kind of the institutional sector, government, big enterprise, these are things that IT people are thinking about. If you're a large mechanical insulator, big corporate entity, you're definitely going to want to have legal and IT involved in making these decisions.
Okay, another anonymous attendee asks, how well does AI perform with idioms and contextual language?
Really well, I have found. I think that's one of the best use cases of AI. When you go to McDonald's and you can order from their screen and you're like, I want a Big Mac meal, add pickles, remove onion, extra large fries, and a pop. You have to physically select with your finger the things you want. AI's more like, hey, I want a Big Mac and fries with a large Coke, and it can take the context of what you're saying to do its query and give you a response. And so this is why I think AI is going to help us solve the pricing sheet problem, is because it can understand the context of what each sheet is. And because it can understand the context of each sheet, it can understand that, oh, this is fiberglass insulation sold in this way, or this is corrugated steel sold in this way. It doesn't have to be standardized. You can let it figure it out for itself.
Okay, another question. Does AI check legality when forming AI-created company policies?
Well, I would say anything that's going to go out of your company that's a legal binding document, you should apply the same rigor in terms of your internal review and a process that you do if an admin assistant were to draft it. So for example, if you have a late/no-show policy, or if you have a vacation policy, I mean, do you go to your lawyer to have a vacation policy drafted? Some companies might, some smaller companies might not, and they may just reference employment labor laws and do their best based on a template they find online or some information they find online. I think the policies that you get out of AI should be taken the same way as if you found a template available online. Do I think it's a good starting point? Yes. Do I think that you should rely on it as a Fortune 500 company to pass every legal check and balance? No. But I would also say if the document is that strict, it probably should start with legal anyways, because I don't think the tool that we have should change any process we have already in terms of legal compliance and how much we have to pay attention to it.
Okay, looks like we've got one more. Is
Okay.
there an AI that can do the takeoff side for drawings to get the information you need so that other AI can calculate a price?
Not that I'm aware of, but I mean, it seems like the type of problem worth solving. And I think it's going to happen. It's just a matter of who's going to solve that problem first. We also need to think about like, so takeoff from drawings versus like, where's the industry going to go? Is everybody going to get a BIM model, which will have all of this information digital? How long are we going to be doing the scrolling wheel on drawings? I don't know the answers to these questions, but I know that right now I haven't seen anything that can do it, and I'm pretty close to it. So that's the answer I have.
Okay, awesome. Attendees, if anybody has any additional questions, now's the time. If I see anything come up, I will let you know. But Corey, thank you so much. This was really a great webinar, super informational. And I think, you know, it ranging from not knowing much to me who uses it on an almost daily basis, I think everybody learned something. So thank you.
Thanks everybody for
attendees,
having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, a couple of things before we hop off. This webinar will be available on our website in the next couple of days. So in case you want to rewatch this or share it with a coworker, you will be able to find it on our website. There are 2 events coming up that I want to make sure you guys know about. May 12th through the 14th is the CSIA Spring Labor Conference. It's going to be in French Lick again this year. Registration is open. You can find it on the website. Rachel is definitely going to want me to say, make sure you make your hotel room now. Lastly, MICA is having their 2025 annual convention June 15 through 19. We're going to be at the Hyatt Regency Coconut Point Resort and Spa in Bonita Springs, Florida. Registration is not yet open, so keep an eye on your email for when that opens, but you can make a room reservation and you can find that on our website. I think that about covers it. So from all of us here at CSIA and MICA, we thank you for being here today, and we hope to see you in French Lick and Bonita Springs. Thanks, everybody.